What if I told you that not one, but multiple crippling winter storms are about to slam the country? Are you ready for what's coming? Because ready or not, this weather is coming, and I'm giving you the exact timeline you need to stay safe. The first punch is a weekend monster that's already threatening to dump over a foot of snow across the heart of the Midwest. But which cities will get buried? First, we're breaking down the minute-by-minute details of this system, but don't you dare go anywhere, because the second time storm brewing for next week could be even worse. And for the grand finale, we'll expose this insane weather pattern, and I'll show you why this is just the beginning of a brutal December. I'm seeing clear signals that these relentless waves of Arctic air are not going to stop, and when they collide with moisture, well, you know exactly what that means. More and more chances for major winter storms. We'll dive into that shocking long-range forecast at the very end of the video, so stick around. If you want to stay ahead of these storms, make sure you're subscribed right now. I'm dedicated to giving you the unvarnished truth about what's heading your way, and I'm grateful you're here to get the information you need. And if this forecast helps you prepare, hitting that like button tells me I'm on the right track. My thoughts are with everyone in the path of this storm. All right. Enough talk. We have a ton of ground to cover. Let's get right into the first threat, winter storm number 1. This beast is already on the move, but the real action ignites tomorrow morning. Let's break it down step by step. Now, this model is showing 9 a.m. Eastern Time, but for everyone in the storm's direct path, that's 8 a.m. Central Time. So adjust your watches. Let's lock in on the NAM model. Can you see it? A fire hose of heavy precipitation is already taking aim. It's like a spear of intense moisture driving right through the Dakotas and beginning its invasion of Nebraska. This is just the leading edge. Now let's jump forward in 6-hour chunks. You need to see how this monster evolves? By about 2 or 3 tomorrow afternoon, the game completely changes. Heavy snow begins its all-out assault on Iowa. It's also creeping into extreme southwest Minnesota. And don't let this narrow band on the map fool you, it's packing a serious, heavy-hitting punch. This corridor of snow slicing through the Dakotas will be unleashing incredibly high snowfall rates wherever it sets up. But here's the crazy twist. There's a razor-sharp cutoff. Rapid City could get absolutely nothing, while just a short drive away, Pierre gets completely hammered. Now, push forward into tomorrow evening around 8 or 9 p.m. This is when things get truly dangerous, as a fire hose of heavy snow unloads on Iowa. You're probably seeing that green mixed in with the blue snow band. Normally that means rain, right? Wrong. That's a model quirk. In this case, that green is actually times more times heavy snow. The intensity is off the charts. As we move forward, don't miss the next part. A major winter battleground is forming right over Omaha. And to the south, you see that pink and purple? A more sinister threat is emerging. That is the signature of a nasty wintry mix. We're talking about sleet pellets and, even more dangerous, a hidden glaze of freezing rain. In fact, a treacherous layer of ice is forecast for that entire region. But wait, we can't ignore Wyoming over here. Snow will be flying hard in Casper, while the Colorado Rockies get a fresh coating as this system continues to pull in more moisture. Meanwhile, it's still times dumping snow back in Bismarck and Pierre. But the storm's center is on the move, and its next target may surprise you. Let's fast forward to the dead of night. We're talking 1, 2 in the morning when the snowstorm finally arrives and begins to rage in Minneapolis. So, here's the million-dollar question. Just how far north will this monster band of snow actually reach? It's already dumping back here in the Dakotas, and believe it or not, we're even seeing a secondary wave of snow popping up in western Nebraska. And then there's that messy, wintry mix, say, in Lincoln. This particular model run shows snow in Omaha, but what's really happening? It's a nasty concoction of sleet, freezing rain, and maybe some snow all mixed in this area. And the culprit? A low-pressure system is muscling in, dragging a whole lot of warm air high up in the atmosphere. Now, it might be cold enough right at the ground for a winter wonderland, but up above, all those perfect snowflakes are melting on the way down. So, let's shift this map a little and get this storm back in motion, because you need to see this. Okay, This is the part that honestly becomes fascinating. I've been chatting with people in Street Louis over on X, and let me tell you, Street Louis is shaping up to be a wild card. We're talking 6, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning. And get this, what you're seeing right here could be an explosion of very heavy, wet snow right over Street Louis. I mean, snowflakes the size of cotton balls. I was joking on X earlier, saying you'd see snowflakes the size of minivans. Okay, not literally, but you get the picture. But this isn't just any snow. We're talking heavy, wet, cement-like snow set to slam Street Louis. So, how is this going to completely wreck your Saturday morning plans? Is it actually going to stay as snow? I have my doubts. Let's push this forward. Now, look at Chicago. At daybreak on Saturday, it is absolutely getting hammered. You can probably tell I'm a snow fanatic. I live here in central South Carolina. We almost never see snow, so I'm genuinely excited for you guys, even though I know not everyone loves it. But this is the heavy stuff. We're talking heavy, wet snow burying Des Moines. Dubuque is getting hit. Davenport, Quincy, Chicago, Milwaukee, Oshkosh, and it's just beginning to creep into places like Green Bay. Now, let's jump ahead to about midday Saturday, around 11 o'clock in the morning. By lunchtime, snow is falling across almost the entire state of Iowa. It's still coming down back in Omaha and Lincoln. And I know I'm going to forget to mention a ton of places, but Minneapolis, you are riding the razor's edge on the northern fringe of the heaviest moisture. But is it cold enough for snow? You bet it is. Green Bay is getting pounded. So is Madison. I mean, look, these darker corridors of color popping up, that signals extremely heavy snow. But then your eyes are drawn down here to Street Louis. You see the pattern? It starts as a winter wonderland. Then it flips to rain. You might get a quick few, maybe even several inches of that heavy, wet snow, and then it switches to a cold, miserable rain. How depressing is that? But wait, there's more to the story. Cold air will follow right behind it, potentially flash freezing all that slush that just fell. But if we keep this moving, guys, I know this is a bit slow pace, but I have to go over all the details in the timeline. You don't want to miss the next part. This takes us to about 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and by then, the snow has completely overrun the entire state of Michigan. The upper and lower peninsulas are both getting buried. But let's rewind just a little bit, because we need to break down this timeline for another major city. Take a look at Indianapolis, a huge population center. On this NAM model, it starts off with that same incredibly heavy, wet snow. I know it looks green on the map right now, but this is going to start as enormous snowflakes. The same exact thing is set up for Evansville. You see the pattern? It's just like Street Louis. It could start as a shocking burst of very heavy, wet snow. In fact, even areas as far south as western Kentucky could begin with extremely heavy, wet snow before it quickly, and I mean quickly, changes over to rain. And by the time we get to Saturday evening, the scene is set. We're looking at a full-blown, all-out, raging snowstorm across the entire Midwest and Great Lakes region. What does a classic Chicago snowstorm look like on a Saturday evening? You're about to find out, because the city is right in the crosshairs. Let's be honest, you guys have been getting cheated on winter weather lately, and I'm saying that for all the fellow snow lovers out there. And while I know many of you up there are not fans, I am a huge winter weather fanatic, as you all know by now. But it's not just Chicago. Toledo and Detroit are getting in on the action, and as we push into the dead of night, the real story begins to unfold. This is the absolute edge of our forecast model, taking us from Saturday night into the critical hours of Sunday morning. At midnight, this entire snowstorm is still raging. Peoria and Springfield are still getting buried. Chicago is seeing non-stop snow. Detroit and all of Michigan are under the gun. And can we just talk about how heavy this gets over Cleveland? We're talking Canton, Columbus, even Cincinnati getting snow. But here's the twist. It's even pushing into the northern regions of Kentucky. Did anyone see that coming? And that's as far as our high-resolution model can see. So what happens next? We have to switch gears to see the rest of the story. Now, picking up right where we left off, as we head into Sunday morning, The last gasps of this storm finally start to shove east. Most of Michigan is still getting pummeled with snow, but look closely at Ohio. A dramatic change is about to take place. You could start the day with a heavy, wet snow, but then it's going to switch to just a good old-fashioned rain before a blast of cold air filters in right behind it. And for everyone in the Northeast, I promised you an update, and this one's a biggie. The forecast has trended significantly colder, and that changes everything. By midday Sunday, this system slams into the region, and it could unload as a heavy, wet snow across New York State. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and northern Pennsylvania are all in the path, especially in those favored cold air trapping regions like the Allegheny Mountains. We're talking western Maryland, the highlands of West Virginia, and all the way down the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. You are in the bullseye. But it's not just snow. See this menacing pink? That could be freezing rain. And the orange? That's a nasty sleet and freezing rain cocktail. And just when you think you have it figured out, by Sunday evening, a lot of these areas could abruptly switch over to plain old rain. What a mess. Now, for everyone along the I-95 corridor, don't think you've escaped. It's just not your turn yet. But stay tuned. I have a whole section of this video dedicated to you. So, while the interior Northeast is getting the brunt of the snow, there's a glimmer of hope for winter weather fans elsewhere. Don't miss the next part. The biggest winner will be those higher elevations, and then a sneaky lake effect snow machine might fire up right behind this whole system. All right, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's break down the totals, moving from west to east across the country. I know I don't have a ton of viewers tuning in from Montana, but I'd feel terrible if I just left you guys out completely. So, for Montana, here's how much snow you can expect from this storm. Go ahead and pause the screen if you need to. Now we're moving east into North Dakota. Bismarck, you're looking at 2 to 5 inches of snow. Dickinson, 2 to 5 for you as well. Just hitting a couple of key spots here. Fargo, it looks like you'll be just north of the heaviest bands. Now, let's drop it down to South Dakota. And this is where things start to get really interesting, with the potential for much heavier snow. And you guys are going to have to remind me, even though you literally can't because I'm not live right now, to pull something critical up. I need to show you the watches and warnings map, because it tells the real story of who's under a winter storm watch, a warning, or just an advisory. And here's the breaking news. We have seen an upgrade from a winter storm watch to a full-blown winter storm warning across parts of South Dakota in just the last couple of hours. For Pierre, that means 2 to 6 inches of snow is on the way. Sioux Falls, you're looking at 4 to 6 inches. Brookings, 4 to 6. Watertown, 2 to 4 inches. In Aberdeen, you're looking at 3 to 5 inches. But this is exactly where the forecast gets complicated. Omaha could see 3 to 8 inches of snow, but then you look at Lincoln. Are you ready for this? You could get just an inch, or you could get a whopping half a foot. So why the huge difference? It all comes down to a battle with ice. In Sioux City, the snow totals jump to 5 to 11 inches. But here's the twist. A glaze of ice is also possible in this area, maybe a couple of tenths of an inch. And for those in York, this is critical. Forecasts are calling for a tenth to a quarter of an inch of straight freezing rain. This entire region is the battleground zone, where a nasty wintry mix could cause chaos. Now, let's shift our focus, because the southern half of Minnesota is about to get hammered. For Minneapolis itself, the models are pointing to 3 to 7 inches of snow, and that's why you're already under a winter weather advisory. But don't be surprised if that gets upgraded to a full-blown winter storm warning. You need to be ready for that. You are right on the northern edge of the heaviest snow bands, so a tiny shift in the storm's track changes everything. Keep checking for updates. Now, travel down to the southern parts of Minnesota and the numbers become staggering. Anywhere from half a foot to a full foot of snow is on the table. It's a massive storm. Let's continue moving east and see what's bearing down on Iowa. Listen up. You are in the bullseye for incredibly heavy, wet, back-breaking snow. A huge part of the state will almost certainly see at least half a foot, The only places that might dodge the worst of it are in the far southwest, where the low-pressure system gets too close. But for Des Moines, brace yourselves for 8 to 13 inches. Ames, you're looking at 9 to 14. Fort Dodge is in that exact same boat. Waterloo is prepping for 9 to 13 inches, and Dubuque could see 8 to 12. And here's another hazard we're tracking. A bit of freezing rain could mix in. Now let me be precise, not a couple of tenths, but a few hundredths of an inch of ice. A couple of tenths would be a crippling ice storm. That more significant freezing rain threat is still possible, but it's confined to the southwestern corner of the state. And of course, I have to show some love to the Kansas City area. In northern Missouri, Kirksville, you're on the hook for 4 to 8 inches of snow. Bethany is looking at 2 to 6, with Maryville at 1 to 5 inches. But what about Kansas City itself? You'll likely see a wintry mix as this system first pushes in, but I am not expecting any truly severe winter weather for you. Now, don't miss this next part. We're jumping up to Wisconsin and Green Bay. Prepare for 6 to 8 inches of snow. The air is plenty cold enough for snow in your area. You're just a bit too far north of the absolute jackpot zone, so expect anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow across this region. But remember this, the further south you go, the deeper the snow will be. And that snow is definitely in the forecast. Further south, Eau Claire sees 3 to 6 inches, but Madison gets hit with 7 to 12. Platteville is in for 8 to 12 inches of snow. La Crosse, 6 to 10 inches. Go ahead and pause the screen right here if you need to find your town. You know, it's really important to me that you see this. I try to pack these videos with as many detailed graphics as I can, and sometimes it's frustrating that the algorithm doesn't push these videos out because I truly believe, and this isn't me trying to brag or anything, but I feel like I'm one of the most detailed weather YouTubers out here that nobody seems to know about. And I get it. Not everyone wants to sit through a weather forecast that lasts 30 minutes. I understand that completely. But this is the only way I know how to do this right. And it's the way I love doing it. Getting as deep into the details as possible so you know exactly what's coming. Okay, back to the jaw-dropping numbers. Milwaukee is bracing for 9 to 18 inches of snow. Yes, you heard that right. Janesville is in the exact same forecast, 9 to 18 inches. We are talking about the potential for 1.5 feet of snow in these areas. We're even knocking on the 20-inch mark in places like Port Washington. This is just incredible. And let me be clear, this is not lake effect snow. This is a massive, good old-fashioned blockbuster snowstorm. The Quad Cities are looking at 8 to 12, Freeport 8 to 13 inches of snow, Princeton 8 to 12, and Peoria 7 to 11. And now, the moment we've been building up to. Chicago. I'm pulling up the latest data right now. Come on, give me the update. What does it have in store for the Windy City? So what's the real story with Chicago's forecast? They're being conservative, and frankly, I don't blame them. But the real question is, will this map even let me click it? I knew I should have just left the graphic up. I hope you can see this, because even if the site is frozen, the numbers are critical. Chicago is officially on the hook for 6 to 8 inches of snow. But just to the west, Rockford is bracing for a massive 8 to 12 inches. You know, this Chicago site always gives me a hard time. I promise you, it's not an internet issue on my end. Their site is just quirky. But hopefully, you can see it clearly. Now, down in Joliet, they're also looking at 6 to 8 inches. But here's the kicker for Chicago. You could get much more than this. I think they're lowballing it, and there's a very good reason why. But the real jackpot is further south in Illinois. Lincoln is looking at 6 to 12, Bloomington is set for 7 to 14, and get this, Peoria could see a monster 9 to 17 inches of snow. And if you're noticing some of these graphics look slightly different, it's simply because of the different update times from the local forecast offices. But here's where the mystery begins. The further south we go, the bigger the question marks become. It drops to just 4 to 8 inches in Litchfield, which then leads us down to the Street Louis area. Right now, the official forecast for Street Louis is a quick 2 to 4 inches of heavy, wet snow. But I am telling you, that number is dangerously misleading. This has the potential to catch everyone completely off guard down there come Saturday morning. I'm going to break down the atmospheric soundings for this exact area in tomorrow's video, but let me give you a preview. It is a locked and loaded setup for incredibly heavy, wet, paste-like snow once you get down to the Interstate 70 corridor. I mean, this could be the heavy, branch-snapping kind of stuff. So if you are anywhere near St. Louis, you have to keep tuning in for updates. The forecast for now is 2 to 4 inches, but don't be surprised if that number explodes. And you can see some other areas on your screen. But now, let's shift focus back north into Michigan because more snow is barreling down on the UP. Now, keep in mind, some of these totals are combining the ongoing lake effect snow with the main storm system, so you have to factor that in. Someone pointed out that I skipped Michigan in this morning's video. You were 100% right, and I didn't mean to do that. It's just a complex forecast because they're blending that lake effect snow. But let's get to it. Kalamazoo is forecast to get a jaw-dropping 11 to 16 inches of snow. Grand Rapids is right there with 10 to 15 inches. Flint, you're looking at 4 to 10. Goodness, a massive amount of snow is on the way for the whole state. Detroit is in for 4 to 9 inches. I know my buddy there in Detroit is going to absolutely love this. I always get you and the other guy in Upper Michigan mixed up. We have Steven and we have Steve. I can't remember which is which. I think Steve is in Detroit. This is looking like a perfect storm for you, man. Enjoy it, buddy. I'm happy for you. All right, let's pivot to northern Indiana because this area is about to experience an all-out winter brawl. There are tons of snow on the way. I mean, just look at these zones. We're talking half a foot to well over a foot of snow in the forecast. But this is a very tricky area. For example, Indianapolis could get just an inch or it could get a solid half a foot. What's the deciding factor? If we listen to the aggressive NAM model, you're probably getting that half-foot jackpot. Then you head up the interstate from there. Lafayette is looking at 5 to 11 inches, and Marion is in for 3 to 9 inches of snow. But once you get south of Indianapolis, the forecast becomes an even bigger question mark. A few inches of snow are possible, even likely. And then there's Evansville, way down at the bottom of your screen. It's such a tough call. You could get nothing at all, or you could get a surprise inch or two of snow. And that brings us to Louisville, where it's looking like only the western and northern parts of Kentucky might see flakes, and it could be just a dusting. But I wouldn't be shocked if a town over there sneaks out an inch or two when no one expects it. Now, let's jump over to northern Ohio. This is that same tricky combination of lake effect and the main storm moving in. But pay close attention to this next part. This forecast only goes out to 7 a.m. on Sunday, folks. So this is not the full storm total. This is just how much they're expecting to fall between right now and 7 a.m. Sunday morning. What's the story for Sunday? While it could shift, Cincinnati is looking at about half an inch of snow, with Columbus getting closer to an inch. Dayton might see an inch or two. But now, let's turn to the real problem area, the Northeast. This is where the forecast gets incredibly tricky. Why is the Northeast so tough to predict? Because we're dealing with two storms at once. You have the relentless lake effect snow machine already firing, and we're about to dump this weekend storm right on top of it. It's a collision of weather systems, mashing everything together into one complicated mess. But here's the crucial takeaway you need to understand. This is shaping up to be a storm for interior New England. The I-95 corridor might think it's off the hook, but hold on, a different, more insidious threat is emerging. A nasty wintry mix for those vulnerable areas in West Virginia. From western Maryland, across the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, down into Virginia. But here's the real shocker. This system is diving all the way down into North Carolina, and the results are exactly what we feared. The European model is now flashing a warning signal for ice. It's just a few hundredths of an inch, but that's a huge red flag. That could even creep up to a tenth of an inch of ice, which is more than enough to cause chaos. A truly nasty wintry mix is on the table for Sunday. We'll lock down those ice totals later. But you have to see what's brewing for next week. Mark your calendars for Monday, December 1st. We've got another monster system to figure out. Watch as this new energy starts to spin up, ready to kickstart our Monday morning. On December 1st, light to moderate snow begins to break out across Colorado, spreading across northern New Mexico and into Kansas. And as this system marches east, you can see the moisture starting to connect, pulling itself together. A band of light snow starts streaking through Oklahoma, pushing from eastern Kansas into Missouri. But will all the pieces connect? It looks like they might, right over northern Arkansas. But will it be snow, or will it be something far messier, like a wintry mix? Here's a shocking twist. A wintry mix is possible, and you won't believe how far south. I'm talking Memphis, possibly even Little Rock. The plot thickens as we head east. And look at this. Is that heavy snow popping up in Tennessee? Yes, it is. And I believe this is a very real possibility. Now, don't miss the next part. If we follow the European model into the eastern U.S., here it comes. This is the moment the storm taps into Atlantic moisture and absolutely explodes in strength. By Tuesday morning, it's a cold rain for the southeast. But do you see that terrifying splash of pink on the map? That's a dangerous glaze of freezing rain for the notorious cold air damming regions of the North Carolina mountains. But just to the north, that is heavy snow blanketing Middle Tennessee and Kentucky. And I'm not talking about a few flurries. The model is painting a band of heavy, accumulating snow. How this scenario unfolds is the million-dollar question. A little light snow lingers to the north, but the engine of this storm is a powerful 997 millibar low, cranking just off the mid-Atlantic coast. A storm that strong has all the power it needs, but here's the critical question. Will the cold air be there to support it? Right now, the Carolinas look like they'll be stuck with rain. The same goes for most of Virginia and the Delmarva Tidewater area. But the second you cross into northern Virginia, it changes to snow. West Virginia gets snow. Parts of Ohio and eastern Kentucky get snow. And that snow just keeps coming. As we move forward, the storm absolutely hammers New York City, northern New Jersey, and eastern Pennsylvania. Maryland, and even DC and Boston get buried in heavy, wet snow, all fueled by a monster 992 millibar low offshore. If this solution is correct, we are looking at a major snowstorm for Boston from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning next week. We just have to nail down the final details. But what about the American GFS model? It's just finishing its latest run, and I think we have the whole forecast ready to analyze. Let's take it all the way to Monday morning. I haven't even seen this new data yet, so we're discovering this together. And right away, there's a huge conflict. The GFS is way more aggressive with a wintry mix in Arkansas, and it absolutely refuses to bring snow that far south into Oklahoma. The model war has officially begun. But it does reveal a band of moderate snow cutting right through Kansas and pushing into northern Missouri. This is heading directly over Kansas City. Now, if this is how it plays out on Monday, could we see accumulating snow in places like St. Louis? Absolutely. Well, St. Louis is in the path, but I was thinking of Kansas City. The real story here, however, is this nasty, treacherous, wintry mix brewing in central to northern Arkansas. We have to ask, is the GFS model onto something big here? And then watch as it marches eastward. And here we go. Let's update this live. And here comes the GFS model's latest run. That first system, that's just the opening act. We've already broken that down. Now, get ready for the main event. The second storm system, a supercharged low-pressure bomb. This low is on a dangerous track, slicing right across the Appalachians, which means it's an all-out rain event for the Mid-South. But just to the north, it's a completely different and more menacing story. This is new snow falling on top of more snow from the system just before it. And look at that! The classic signal of cold air damming is appearing in all the usual spots, the foothills and mountains of the Appalachians, trapping that frigid air. This brings us into Tuesday morning, with that low pressure cutting right across the Carolinas. And what does that mean? A juiced-up winter storm for Ohio and for Pennsylvania. We're talking a nasty, wintry mix, and it even tries to throw some of that mess into New York City. But for the city itself, it's mostly rain because of how close the low-pressure center is. This will create a massive mixing battle in southern New England. For the interior Northeast, however, it's a whole other beast. With that cold air already locked firmly in place, this is setting up to be a huge, blockbuster snowstorm for you guys. And then we have to watch what happens next. So what's the snow signal telling us? This is the European ensemble model, shown in 3-day increments. You can see it clearly, the footprint of snow covering areas of the Central Plains and into Missouri. An inch, maybe 2 inches of snow is possible out of this first wave, the kind of thing that meets winter weather advisory criteria. But there's also a more sinister signal for ice. Now, this first part is what's happening this weekend, but stick with me because what I'm about to show you is what could happen as we move into early next week. Don't miss the next part. And that's a signal for a few hundredths of an inch of ice. A little hint from the blend of all models is popping up in Arkansas, Missouri, and right in that mid-Mississippi Valley area. And then, when we look at the signal for the eastern U.S., you see that big blob of snow right here? That is what's unfolding right now. But then, watch what pops up again right behind it, in the exact same area. This is the heavy signal we've been warning you about the major winter storm risk for next week. We're talking a couple-inch snowfall average across the Ohio Valley, but that jumps to a few-inch snowfall average across the Northeast. I mean, even look at Northern Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic. That is a hefty, hefty signal. I'm getting distracted by our dog barking in the background. Even he knows this is a big deal. I do apologize for that, but this is a heavy signal for the Northeast that you just can't ignore. I mean, we even have a 4 to 5 inch snowfall average showing up across areas of New England. That is a pretty solid signal. And if we look at the ice potential from this, there is a definite and worrying signal for this, too. This here is the potential ice threat for the midweek storm as we get into next week, and it's a dangerous combination of that storm and the weekend system across the mid-Atlantic. So, we will continue to piece this all together. You know, our big focus is the immediate system this weekend, and then we will be able to get ridiculously detailed on this potential monster winter storm for next week. So, let's talk about the bigger pattern, guys. And listen closely. I have every reason to believe that December is just getting warmed up and is going to continue to deliver blasts of cold Arctic air down into the lower 48. And with it, the potential for more major winter storms. Are you ready to see what's coming next week? Take a look at this map. All this blue and green represents a massive zone of low pressure, and it's the first major clue. But what's causing it? Now shift your eyes to these areas of red, orange, and pink. This is a wall of high pressure building, creating a major atmospheric battle. I need to get my drawing tool for this. I'm pulling it up on the fly because you absolutely have to see what this pattern is setting up. What you're looking at is a powerful ridge, a spike of high pressure, shooting right into Alaska. We call this a negative EPO. But what does that mean for you? It's an atmospheric bulldozer shoving frigid Arctic air south into an explosive storm track. Now, follow this little extension of blue right here. That's not just some random low pressure. That is the exact signal for our next storm system. It's the collision point where that massive cold air source slams into an ocean of moisture. And what happens when those two forces meet? But don't look away, because the pattern doesn't stop there. I want to push forward in time, and I know we're getting far out, but you need to see what's brewing for next weekend. There's another ominous signature trying to take shape. The big question is, will it be a full-blown winter storm or just a blast of dry, cold air? The jury is still out. We're talking about the 6th, 7th, and 8th of the month. That's next weekend, and look at this, a massive trough is starting to dig in. And this isn't just any model. This is the European ensemble, the gold standard for long-range forecasting, and it's screaming this pattern. This is an incredibly strong signal for a trough to dive deep into the eastern United States, while a monster ridge builds out west. This is a classic setup that brings in even more cold air and the potential for another major storm next weekend. But what if we keep going? Now, listen, we're heading into what forecasters call no man's land here, but the signs are too powerful to ignore. The one thing that keeps showing up is this persistent troughing just parked over Canada and the northern sections of the U.S. I want you to think of this entire blue area as a giant, rechargeable battery of cold air. It's like a piece of the polar vortex broke off and is sitting right on our doorstep. This means that any storm system trying to develop to the south now has a direct pipeline to Arctic air, dramatically increasing the risk of significant winter weather. And watch this. As we push the timeline all the way out to the 10th, we finally see some movement in the pattern. But one thing remains perfectly clear. This giant blob of blue isn't going anywhere. This tells me we're locked into a pattern of repeated cold air invasions down into the lower 48. So what's the takeaway here? It's all because of this massive reservoir of cold air that's being established to our north. Now, this blue doesn't just mean cold air. It means troughing, which is the mechanism that drags that cold air south. And what we're doing is setting the stage for something huge. Folks, it's like we are creating an atmospheric glacier, a constantly replenishing source of frigid temperatures. We are essentially deep freezing the very source region where our cold air comes from, right up here. Now, here's a crazy twist. Usually, when that cold air dives south from the high latitudes, it has time to moderate, to warm up a little bit over the land. But what if it doesn't do that this time? In fact, what if the air actually gets times colder, times as it heads south? The simplest way to put it is this. We have a brutally strong cold air source locked and loaded to the north, ready to fire off multiple shots throughout the month of December. And this pattern looks locked in all the way out to about the 10th or 11th of the month. So let's look at the proof. Switching to the Euro Ensemble's temperature forecast, check out all this blue and green spreading across the map. This is the bullseye for colder than average temperatures. And we're not talking just a few degrees. To put it in perspective, if your average high temperature is 55 degrees and the forecast is for 10 degrees below average, your high for the day might only be in the mid-40s. I hope that really sinks in. Now, on the other hand, the warmer colors you see on your screen, that's where it will be above average. We're going to set this into motion starting next Tuesday, and what you'll notice immediately is a persistent wave of below average temperatures just taking over the central and eastern US. And that's just the start. Remember that warm torch we were talking about for December? What if I told you to completely erase that from your mind? Go ahead and just forget it, because it is absolutely not happening. We're about 1 week out, and the whole game has changed. A deep freeze is still locked in for the eastern US, while the western US stays warm. But the million-dollar question is, will it ever warm up? Maybe. I don't know for sure, but I am not confident it will, because as we push into next weekend, something else is coming. A second, even more powerful pool of cold air is getting ready to plunge into the eastern US. Now, it is going to try and fight a stubborn ridge of high pressure. But even as we head into the second week of December, around the 8th, 9th, and 10th, another brutal push of cold air drops down. The assault just continues. And if you pull back and look at the bigger picture, you can see our cold air is funneling down from the exact same region over and over again. It is literally one blast of cold air after another blast of cold air. This isn't a fluke, it's a pattern. Now, this is where it gets crazy. What I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind, and I'm pulling it up on the fly because it just hit me how wild this is. I totally forgot to show you the watches and warnings for the winter storm moving in this weekend, but we'll put a pin in that. What's truly unbelievable is the official 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. I'm just gonna say it. I think this is completely bogus. I always get hyped to look at this in the winter to see if it confirms what the computer models are showing. But what I saw this afternoon did not get me hyped at all. I believe it's totally wrong. This 8 to 14 day outlook running from the 5th through the 11th shows the exact opposite of what's coming. It's predicting above average temperatures for this huge slice of the southeast. There's absolutely no way we're going to see above average temperatures there. In fact, I am certain we will have below average temperatures for this entire area. Absolutely positive. They should have dragged this blue shading much further south. I'm honestly not sure what data they're looking at to make a map like this. If anything, I would have kept it at least near normal all the way down into Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. It just doesn't make any sense. But listen, we can get lost in the sauce arguing the details until the cows come home. Now, here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the 3rd through the 7th. I guess this makes a bit more sense, but honestly, I would have made this cold anomaly even bigger. It's just a strange outlook from the Climate Prediction Center today. I just don't get it. Don't miss this next part because I'm about to show you the secret key they might be missing. So, let's talk about the MJO. I know this is a long video and I'm just rambling on, but I absolutely love this stuff, guys. And speaking of the MJO, I don't have a way to draw on this, but look at phases 4, 5, and 6. Those are our warm phases, right? But look where we are right now, phase 7. And what does phase 7 do? It favors cold air pouring into the US. Now, a lot of the time, it has to fight off a ridge of high pressure, especially in the southeast and the southern tier of the country. It can even be a battle in the eastern US, sometimes. But ultimately, it favors a major cold air dump, which is precisely what we are getting right now. Today is the 27th. We are sitting squarely in phase 7, but here's the real bombshell. Phases 8, 1, and 2 are the coldest phases, and we are heading directly towards phase 8, folks. And the latest European model shows us racing there by next week and then getting fully locked into that phase 8 pattern. And listen to me carefully. Phase 8 in December is the golden ticket for a cold wintry pattern for the central and eastern US, and sometimes for almost the entire country. So, we are getting there. We are moving into an extremely favorable phase. And guys, this reveals the real problem. What I think is happening is that the computer models are seriously struggling with this shift. I mean, they are truly lost. That's what's causing all this confusion. In our next video, we're going to dive into which model is getting it right and what that means for our snow chances. The models are in a flat-out war over the MJO's next move, and the question is, what's really going to happen? And I believe we're seeing a chaotic mix of intense high-latitude blocking, a dangerously stretched polar vortex, and that wild card, the sudden stratospheric warming, that whole tangled mess I stopped discussing about a week ago. The truth is, I don't think anyone has a firm enough grasp on that phenomenon to truly forecast its impact. And while I can only speak for myself, I've been reading what every other expert is putting out there. You can see it clear as day. Everyone is completely scattered on the sudden stratospheric warming, and absolutely no one has a reliable handle on it. That's exactly why I've put it on the back burner. But here's what we times know for certain. There's been a major disruption over the top of the planet, and it's dislodging Arctic air, forcing it south. Now, what happens when you mix that polar plunge with our trajectory toward MJO Phase 8? The ingredients are coming together for something big, folks. The setup is undeniable. So, stick with me here. I want to thank you all for watching this far. I poured a massive amount of energy into this particular forecast because I was genuinely excited by what the data was showing me. And look, I'm not sure if it's just my videos, because I haven't been checking out what other creators are seeing, but these forecasts aren't reaching as many of you as they should. Perhaps it's because my core audience is right here in the South, and maybe you think a story about snow in the North doesn't concern you. But what if I told you this pattern has a surprise in store? But I truly hope this information gets out to more people, because understanding this complex setup is not only crucial, it's what makes this so fascinating to track. Don't miss the next part. Stay safe, everyone, and get some rest. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the next critical update, and you won't want to miss it.